Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, no response from North Korea as of yet regarding South Korea's final offer of talks on reopening the joint Gaeseong Industrial Complex. Seoul wants Pyongyang's assurance the factory zone will not be affected by political or military concerns in the future. Ahead of the much-anticipated peace negotiations between Israel and Palestine in Washington late Monday, the US urges both sides to make reasonable compromises. One of the thorniest issues is Israeli settlements in the West Bank that suspended talks in 2010. Plus, in a stark comparison to his predecessor's position on homosexuality, Pope Francis says gay people should not be marginalized for their sexual orientation and be integrated into society. Daybreak begins now.
Good to have you with us. You're watching Daybreak on Tuesday, July 30th here in Seoul, and I'm Choi You-sun. We begin with the latest on inter-Korean relations. The ball is now in North Korea's court after Seoul offered Pyongyang a final chance for talks over their suspended Gaeseong Industrial Complex. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee reports on the dialogue still stuck in limbo.
North Korea did not give an answer on Monday to what the South calls its final proposal for talks regarding the normalization of the Gaeseong Industrial Complex. Seoul's Unification Ministry said it offered to hold a seventh round of working-level talks to the north through their inter-Korean hotline on Monday morning. The ministry said it did not lay out when and where the meeting should take place, but requested a swift response. The two Koreas have held 6 rounds of working-level talks this month on reopening the business park, but the two have so far failed to narrow their differences. Seoul has demanded safeguards against future closures before reopening the complex, while Pyongyang has pushed for an immediate, unconditional resumption of operations.
It is important for the two Koreas to cooperate in developing the Gaeseong Industrial Complex into an internationally competitive business park. In order for us to do that, it's essential to ensure that there will never be a repeat of the incidents that we saw in March and April of this year.
While the South has warned of grave measures if its proposal goes unanswered by the North, experts say chances for concrete progress in the talks are slim, with Seoul showing no sign of change in its own stance. They say without any compromises from the South, North Korea will not be positive about the idea of implementing safeguards against future closures of the complex. But some remain upbeat about Pyongyang's response, saying that the North may not want to let go of the joint business park, a source of hard currency for the cash-strapped nation. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Military officials from South Korea and the U.S. will hold a 2-day high-level defense meeting starting this Tuesday in Seoul. A South Korean Defense Ministry official said the biannual meeting will evaluate security threats posed by North Korea and issues related to Washington's wartime operational control transfer to Seoul, slated for December of 2015. The talks come amid growing calls in the South to push the date of the control transfer, largely due to continued nuclear and missile threats from North Korea. Seoul and Washington hope to decide on a transfer postponement by October. On the economic front, despite policymakers' recent rosy outlook that the economy will pick up steam in the second half of this year, more manufacturers in the nation feel pessimistic about the Korean economy. Our Hwang Ji explains what's behind the contradiction.
Not many Korean manufacturers seem confident about the nation's nascent economic recovery. Only days after the government welcomed signs of recovery and promised steps to spur growth, the Bank of Korea said Monday that the business sentiment index for July remained subdued, coming in at 72, down from the 79 tallied a month earlier. The index that gauges manufacturers' expectations on business conditions dropped the most this month in a year. A reading below the benchmark 100 means pessimists outnumber optimists. The central bank official said demand at home and abroad remained weak even after considering normally slow factory operations during the summer vacation season. The drop in business sentiment comes less than a week after the central bank said the economy grew at the fastest pace in 2 years in the second quarter of this year. The economy grew 1.1% in the April to June period from the previous quarter, rising above 1% for the first time in 9 quarters. Experts attribute the recovery in the second quarter largely to government stimulus measures and stress that weak overseas demand, particularly in China, is weighing on manufacturers' business sentiment.
Government policies affect investment, but the most important factor when deciding on investment is the level of demand. Companies will expand investment only when they think their products will sell well, but current conditions are very uncertain.
In the face of lackluster global demand, facilities investments declined in the second quarter of this year, reflecting the manufacturer's bleak outlook for the second half of this year. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Korea's top automakers Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors have all largely ridden through these choppy economic times unscathed, and 2013 looks set to be a particularly strong year for the group. U.S.-based market research firm LMC Automotive forecasts Hyundai Motor Group will record an all-time high in terms of global market share this year. Already in the first half of 2013, Hyundai Motor and its affiliate Kia Motors sold around 3.7 million vehicles, which amounts to 8.8% of global market share. That is 0.2 percentage points higher compared to the same period last year, driven by demand in Europe and in countries like China and Brazil. Experts say the company may pass the 9% mark by the end of this year, despite a sales drop in the United States. Visiting Prime Minister of New Zealand John Key concluded a 5-day trip to Korea on Monday by holding a special luncheon from a forum in Seoul. Key highlighted his vision on some pending political and economic issues between the two countries. Our Hyundai was there.
New Zealand Prime Minister John Key delivered a special speech to high-ranking Korean officials and prominent business figures at a luncheon forum on Monday. The Prime Minister, who arrived in Korea to mark the 60th year since the signing of the Korean Armistice Agreement, touched upon a wide range of issues. Beginning his speech by thanking war veterans, the leader expressed support for President Park Geun-hye's North Korea policy.
So in this regard, I applaud President Park's aspiration for peace and stability on the peninsula, including her efforts to reach out to North Korea. We reject North Korea's provocations. We call on them to commit firmly to abandon nuclear weapons.
Saying the relationship between South Korea and New Zealand has become increasingly significant ever since the Korean War, he highlighted the two nations' economic ties.
It's interesting that Korea is comfortably our 5th largest export market, but trade is highly complementary in nature.
He focused especially on the Korea-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement, saying the deal would bring about prosperity for both sides. The leader brushed off worries that the FTA would hurt Korea's domestic agricultural sector, the main hurdle that derailed trade negotiations in 2010.
But of course, New Zealand doesn't really compete with a lot of the core and critical and sensitive issues around agriculture. So, for instance, we don't produce rice, and probably will never do so. Our conditions don't suit that.
Reports suggest that the two countries will resume FTA negotiations sometime this year. But whether the two sides will be able to narrow differences on the sticking points this time around remains to be seen. Hyundai, Arirang News.
Prosecutors in Seoul investigating whether food and entertainment conglomerate CJ Group bribed top tax officials with cash and expensive gifts are soon expected to summon former tax agency chief Jeon Gun-pyo. Following intensive questioning over the weekend, prosecutors say that former deputy commissioner of the National Tax Service, Heo Byung-ik, admitted passing on a bribe from CJ to Jeon, his boss at the time. It is suspected this was in exchange for not auditing the group, which was under suspicion of tax evasion at the time. Hall was arrested on Saturday on allegations that he took $300,000 and luxury watches from CJ Group in 2006. His former boss Chun has reportedly denied ever receiving the bribes.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiations.
President Park Geun-hye planned, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a.
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. Israeli and Palestinian negotiators are to hold preliminary talks on resuming peace negotiations in Washington, which have been stalled for over 3 years. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, while recognizing the negotiations will be a tough process, called on the two sides to make, quote, reasonable compromises. Kerry named former U.S. Ambassador to Israel Martin Indyk as the special U.S. envoy to the talks. Experts say no major developments should be expected from this meeting, as the two sides will most likely focus on setting the outline for how the talks will occur this time around. They'll eventually seek an agreement over the status of Jerusalem and the fate of the Palestinian refugees. A series of car bombs tore through the busy streets of Iraq on Monday, killing more than 50 people and injuring hundreds. The bombs appear to have been coordinated in predominantly Shia-occupied areas, including the capital, Baghdad. Militant groups linked to al-Qaeda are suspected of leading the attacks in Middle Eastern countries, with Shia-led governments underscoring the sectarian strife between Sunni and Shia Muslims. A monitoring group called the Iraq Body Count says more than 800 Iraqis have been killed in militant attacks so far this month. Pope Francis is signaling a shift in tone towards gay people, saying they should not be marginalized but integrated into society. Speaking to journalists Monday on his way back from a week-long visit to Brazil, Pope Francis reaffirmed that homosexual acts are a sin, but added it's not up to him to judge them. This is the first time a pope has addressed the issue of homosexuality so openly, and the Vatican experts say it could signal the start of a more flexible attitude toward gay members of the church. Azerbaijan is perhaps best known to Korea for its rich natural resources, but residents there are increasingly becoming interested in Korean culture. In this first part of our special series on Azerbaijan, our Song Ji-sun tells us how Korean artists captivated the locals with some kicks.
Azerbaijan, a country bordered by the Caspian Sea to the east, Russia to the north, and Iran to the south, celebrated 2 decades of diplomatic ties with South Korea last year. And over the last decade, the oil-rich country has expanded its economic ties with Korea, but also its cultural ties. Azerbaijan's economy is expanding at a remarkable pace, opening new business opportunities for Korean companies. And the exchange between the two countries is also on the rise in various aspects, including sports and culture. This summer, Azerbaijan's tourist city of Gabala welcomed a handful of Korean artists. Opening the stage was Kyunghee University's traditional dance team, who translated Korea's beauty in subtle yet eye-catching moves. The finale was highlighted by the Korean traditional fan dance.
Korea's traditional dance can be conceived as relatively static, with a lot of choreography expressed through the hands, so we try to portray as much movement as possible for the Azerbaijani audience, and I could feel their applause was from the heart.
Also on the program was a performance by the World Taekwondo Federation demonstration team. A spectacle of movements, highlighted by a Gangnam-style ending, was more than enough to impress the spectators.
I'm a judo fighter, and I find Taekwondo interesting with its high kicks. And it's amazing to see these petite girls jumping so high and breaking those boards.
A Korean pianist was also invited to mark the beginning of Gabala's 5th International Music Festival that kicked off on Wednesday.
We are delighted to have Korea's Taekwondo, dance, and music artists here to reaffirm the bond between the two countries. The Azerbaijani government is especially enthusiastic about expanding further exchanges with Korea.
The dance and taekwondo company are scheduled to continue performing and promoting Korean culture throughout Azerbaijan this week. 송지선, Arirang News, Gabala.
Flu season usually peaks in late winter, but that doesn't mean that you can't start building up your body's immune system ahead of time. Traditional medical doctors here in Korea have released a new study that shows you can protect your health by taking special herbal remedies ahead of the winter season. Our Paul Yi reports.
Cold-related infections hit adults 2 to 3 times a year on average in Korea, while young children are susceptible 6 to 8 times a year. Men and women of all ages fear catching the sniffles as the cure for the common cold continues to elude modern medicine. It's a constant concern even in the dead heat of summer. However, a new study by Korean researchers of Oriental medicine has found herbal remedies to be effective in fighting off those pesky colds. According to the results of the study, some 70% of the 50 patients who received treatment showed improved resistance to cold-related infections. Of those that saw an improvement, the annual number of personal cases of illness significantly dropped from about 6 to 1.
We had severe colds before, but as of last winter, we had a lot fewer symptoms. Symptoms such as coughing, sore throats, and even runny noses really seem to have declined.
Approximately 8 ingredients are used in this herbal treatment, including the roots of various plants that are known to have beneficial medicinal properties. The final mixture is bandaged onto the body at least 3 times during the summer months, when temperatures reach their peak. It's a herbal application that can be used on adults and children alike without any discomfort. The treatment is unique to Korean traditional medicine, as it supposedly strengthens a person's immune system for the upcoming winter.
Usually these days during the hottest periods of the summer or when there's a heat wave, it's best to use natural medicines that are warm and give you energy. This helps stimulate the body's blood apertures and lungs. That helps prevent the onset of colds and other respiratory illnesses.
Researchers of Oriental medicine say the treatment may also help with symptoms of asthma, nasal allergies, and chronic lung diseases. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Good morning, and here we go again. You might remember Park Jong-woo getting in a lot of trouble for parading a "Dokdo is our land" sign after beating Japan for the soccer bronze medal in London last year. The Olympics don't allow its games to be used as a political stage, and Park Jong-woo was originally withheld his medal and then fined before receiving his medal this past February. At Sunday's East Asian Cup match between Korea and Japan, it became apparent that their lessons weren't necessarily learned, albeit the players weren't to blame this time. One fan in the Japanese supporter area was seen waving the Japanese imperial flag, the Asian equivalent of the red Nazi flag. Korean supporters seemed to be prepared with their own sign that read, "There is no future for people who have forgotten their past," which was obviously aimed at Japan's denial of various war crimes which they have not acknowledged. The Japanese media has jumped on the motives of the sign, and now the Japan Football Association has requested the East Asian Football Federation investigate the matter. The KFA has stated that they will not punish the Red Devils for flashing the sign, although they did make them take the sign down at halftime, something that prompted some supporters to boycott cheering for the remainder of the game. Sunday morning was dubbed Korean Day in Major League Baseball, at least from fans and media of Korea, as that was the day Choo Shin-soo and Ri Hyun-jin met for the first time. And while they are the only two Koreans playing in the majors right now, another is quickly making a case to join them. Chicago Cubs reliever Im Chang-young pitched 2 scoreless innings yesterday in his debut for Chicago's AAA affiliate in Iowa. He struck out 2 while allowing a pair of hits in the game, which the Cubs lost 4-3 to Oklahoma City. If all goes well, Im could join the Cubs in August or by September at latest when Major League teams expand their rosters. Choo Shin-soo got the day off after facing his Korean compatriot, but he was used as a pinch hitter when the Reds faced the Dodgers for their series finale yesterday. Choo was hit by Paco Rodriguez in his at-bat, and then he stole second for his 12th steal of the season. Choo was stranded as the Dodgers won the game 1-0 in 11 innings. Thursday afternoon, Korean time, Park In-bi will begin her pursuit of a 4th straight LPGA major title when the British Open tees off in Fife, Scotland. There are often many different plots taking place at these major championships, but it's clear that this opportunity at history is the only story the media is following. Park In-bi is known to be the best putter on the tour, but a lot of questions are flying about her long game and how she plans to deal with the windy conditions of St. Andrews, which has been known to give fits to even the best golfers.
The driving distance isn't very different. A normal shot compared to a shot into a headwind. The run is the same because of the wind that forms. That's why a drive with a low trajectory will have its advantages. And considering how much less the ball will be affected by side winds as well, I think will make it easier.
Among the golfers looking to end Park In-bi's streak will be Shin Jie, who is the defending champion, trying for her 3rd British Open title. Chang Jung and Park Se-ri are also former Korean winners of the event. And that is your look at sports. Remember to eat healthy and get some exercise today.
Good morning, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, I'd like to start out telling you guys that we are at a higher risk for heat stroke today, especially cities in South, so please drink plenty of water and stay cool. Now, outbreaks of rain is in the picture for southern provinces between the morning and noon, and it should be the other way around for central provinces. Clouds will fill the skies towards the midday to drop showers till tomorrow morning, and that showers can be heavy at times. Now tomorrow we should get a little relief from the heat wave. Expect 2 to 3 degrees lower daytime highs compared to today. Now central region will be waking up to light rain, whereas cities in south will see sprinkle. But AM showers will gradually go away before noon, and clear afternoon is on tap with glimpses of sunshine. Now back to today's forecast. We should be waking up to mostly to partly sunny skies, but there is a light layer of fog form, but not as bad as yesterday. And with the sunrise, it should burn off quickly. The humidity this morning will be 88% on average. So with that, let's take a closer look at today's readings. Now the daytime highs will be similar compared to yesterday, and please be aware if the morning lows are over 25 degrees Celsius, that means those regions had tropical night last night, and it looks like, let's see, Daegu, Gwangju, and Busan probably had one. And daytime highs for Daegu today will be scorching hot at 34. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will have a very hot day at 34 as well, but Dokdo and Mount Kumgang will stay a bit cooler at 26 and 25. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all from me at this hour. Enjoy your morning commute and have a great day.
And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching.